Right, so I've taken out the big cordyline australis. It had the stripped trunk and it was starting to branch off again, even though I'd removed last season's branches. I've basically just taken it out because it was casting shade as the sun was behind it, and so as the sun moved around it was just casting that shade. So I'm just opening up this bed completely to these plants here. And I've put it in here just at the start of the path going across the way. At a huge side, like a taproot. So some of it broke away. I've trimmed off. I've noticed when I've done transplants that the plant, it's not able to, because of the shock, it's not able to feed the strap leaves on it. So I've trimmed these off just to see how these go. If the other ones start going back, I could be lucky, and I might be unlucky. We'll see how these get on. It still looks very healthy in the centre though. So into the wood, I've started to add the Tetrapanax Papyrifera. There's one there, there's one here, here, and we're due a rainstorm today, which will be excellent because I don't have to come down and water them. So a couple of other plants that I had in the tunnel. This is actually the only surviving cutting from last year. That very same cordyline australis that we were just looking at. This is one of the small ones from last year that I had in the tunnel over winter, and it's starting to grow. How it gets on, I don't know. So the two kind of breakaway, so you can see last year's cuttings here, but out of them these two started growing again. And when I dug up the big cordyline australis, this actually just kind of broke away from around the root and the stem. So I've planted these up here. There could be a good chance of keeping these small ones here. We'll see what happens anyway. But I've started to introduce a couple of cordyline australis into the wood. Obviously more light will start coming in once I start removing the dead trees. More light is going to come in. So I started off on this side as well. I started to plant up some Tetrapanax Papyrifera. One there. It's actually getting kind of tough now because these roots, the root systems of the trees are heavy in the ground. But preferably if I can grow the bamboo, the Tetrapanax kind of stuff in between the trees, it's ideal because they have to compete with the trees. I don't think they're going to be able to, they won't be able to take over. Yeah, so here's another Tetrapanax. Here's the Huang Wing Zhu. It's so top heavy and catching the wind. I've kind of had to use the branches off this dead larch to catch it and then I've had to tie it across to the dead trunk of the tree. We'll see how it gets on. I'm not too sure if I should chop this back. Maybe I should. A lot of the leaves, they look desiccated, so I think I might be. We got some fresh growth down here, so unfortunately I think the safest bet to save this huge area of the root ball of this, because of the shock of being dug up and moved across, and it fell over a couple of times before I got it tied up properly, that I'm probably gonna have to chop these and leave on the small growth. That's just the way it is. Another Tetrapanax in here. I think that's a Miscanthus giganteus, or a variant of that. This is the Vivax australis. It doesn't look as bad. They don't look as desiccated as the Hongwing Zhu. So I have come down every week and given it a good soak, trying to encourage the roots to get out and find the moisture. But again, I don't know, I might have to chop this back. But with bamboo, like, it only takes a couple of seasons for it to come back. The musabassus are all coming on. I think if everything takes off, I think it's going to look excellent with the foliage and palms, grasses, trees. Still it looks like a bomb site at the moment. Sam's only going with a chainsaw. Yeah, so there's not a lot of plants for me to put down now at all. I do have another dozen Tetrapanax Papyrifera. I'm not too sure if they're not strong enough. They're a lot smaller than the ones I put down, half the size probably. So I'm just going to wait until they give them another 2 or 3 months, probably put them down then, see how they get on. So today I've taken out the tree that was here, the Paulownia. Came out real easy. I thought the ground here was actually going to be real compacted and dry. You can just see the old path. This was kind of a path that was around the chicken house here, coming around the back of it. And I was able to get in and dig the soil up. So this morning I've added the composted manure, and I put in the Schefflera digitata. This is the New Zealand Schefflera. They're not as hardy as the Chinese Asian Scheffleras, or the Asian Schefflera. Most people would be used to it. The leaves are a lot lighter. They're actually very light, but you can see the shape is very, very similar. Grows into a tree, so hopefully, like the other New Zealand plants, as I said in the previous videos, the other New Zealand plants, I think they only give them to about a -5 Celsius before they die off or whatever, but these have seen -7. Now if it was prolonged over a week or two, they probably would kick the bucket, but I've never seen any signs of damage on these ones here. So we'll see how this one gets on. The willow tree that was here, I've just left 2 branches going off to the left here because that's going to be covering these more jungle type green foliage plants in here, which do well with the canopy that covers over them. But here I've just, and around the middle, I've cut it right back hard, so the sun as it travels around is going to come in on this guy and the rest of them. I've left the paulownia there as well. You can see the just pinch out the top. You don't want the growth going up. You want to encourage all these leaves now, get that jungle foliage